Welcome back to your very last lesson of Algebra 2 this year. We're still in quadratic equations, and today we're going to learn solving with the quadratic formula. This is on page 225 and 226. I wrote down the general form that these need to be in before you can do them, and then I wrote down the formula, and then I'm going to show you how to use it. These take up quite a bit of space, but it's more or less just a substitution method, so it's tedious, but the calculations aren't hard. After this, I will try to do a final review with you, so there may be one more video for this, okay? So don't forget about your extra credit with that. Now, with that being said, I have two problems up here, and we'll start with this one. What you want to look at is that you have your x squared term, your x, and then your number, all in order, all on the same side, and that you want your x squared term to be positive. I think that might be for a different application. But the a, the b, and the c are all numbers, so they're what's in front of each one of those x's in the number. So the first thing you want to do is list your a, b, and c. It's important that you find them, so I'll get out of your way in a minute. What's in front of x squared is a, so that's a 4. Wow. What's in front of x is a -1. Remember, if nothing's written there, it's a 1 and the sign is negative. And then the c itself is a -3. So those are the numbers we need. Then we no longer need this problem, okay? So we just need a is 4, b is -1, and c is -3. And they came, that's why they need to be in this order, so we know what they are. Then we're going to plug them into this formula and solve it, okay? Sometimes you will get regular numbers, whole numbers. Sometimes you will get radicals and you need to simplify them as much as you can, but sometimes they stay there. So this formula is x equals -b, so b is -1, so I'd say negative times -b. That's a -b. b is already negative, but we have to show both of them. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that would be -1 squared minus 4. That's in the formula. You cannot change that. Times a, which is 4, times c, which is -3, all over 2 times a. So all I did was plug in my b's and a's and c's from these numbers in this formula, and then I'm going to work it out, okay? And I'll do it slowly so you can see. The first thing I got, I will write it down here while I'm working it out, is a negative times a -1. A negative times a negative makes it positive, so that actually is a +1, plus or minus, and I'm going to condense this down. -1 squared, -1 times -1 is a +1. Alright, and then if I look right here, all three of these get multiplied, but I have a negative and a negative, so that's going to make a positive. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 3, I believe, is 48. And then on the bottom of this, I have 2 times 4, which is 8. Alright, so now I'm showing you every step that I'm doing here so that you can see where the numbers come from. Again, I need to make this where it looks like 1 plus or minus the square root of 49, because 1 plus 48 is 49, over 8, which really the square root of 49 is 7, so this would be 1 plus or minus 7 over 8. And now, that's not the answer. This is two separate problems. 1 plus 7 over 8 and 1 minus 7 over 8. I need to do both of those to get two possible answers, and then I'll be done. So I'm going to write 1 plus 7 over 8, which is 8 over 8, or 1. And then I'm going to do 1 minus 7 over 8, which would be negative 6 over 8, which is negative 3/4. So x will equal, I hope you can see this down here, x will equal 1 or negative 3/4. Okay, so that's one problem. Yes, it is long, but I also showed you every single step, but the work in it is not that hard. Just go step by step. Plug it in, solve it. So let's look at 16. All right, 16 is not completely in order. The negative 2 needs to be moved over, so I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to get 3x squared minus 6x plus 2 equals 0, because I had to do it a positive because that one was negative to move it. All right, so now it is in this form. I need to find my a, b, c. I'm going to write them up here to save room. A is 3, B is negative 6, and C is a positive 2. Okay, everybody see those? All right, so now we're going to plug them back in this formula. If you plan on going to college, you might as well memorize this formula because it will come up. So we go x equals negative whatever b is. B is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which would be negative 6 squared minus 4 times whatever a is 3. And then there's a c, so c all over 2 times whatever a is, which is 3. My marker's running out. I'm going to switch it real quick. But once you plug it in, we just simplify. Let's try this one, see if it's any better. All right, so a negative makes a positive, so that would be x equals positive 6 plus or minus, I hope this color is showing up. Let me look real quick. Okay. Negative 6 squared would be negative 6 times negative 6, so that would be a positive 36. And then if I look at this, there's one negative. That one's positive, that one's positive, so this will stay negative. Okay, 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. And then that goes over 2 times 3, which is 6. All right, so now I got to do 36 minus 24, which should be 12. So I would have x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 12 over 6, okay? I'm not done. I need to simplify. There is no perfect square root of 12, but 12 can be broken down to look like 4 times 3, and there is a square root of 4. So if we bring that out, the 2 has to come here. The square root of 4 is 2. It comes to the outside. So what this really should look like now, let me scoot this over a little bit, is 2 radical 3, because I simplified that. And now what I want to do is simplify these outside numbers. Okay, I will not be able to add 6 plus 2 radical 3 because they're not the same, or 6 minus 2 radical 3. So I'm going to leave my answer like this, but I know that my 6's will cancel out. But it's basically a division into this and to this, okay? So this is going to cancel out, and I don't want to say cancel out. It's going to go like this. Alright, it's kind of weird, but because of the way that this is, I'm going to write it separately so you can maybe C. Alright, this turns into 1/3. But this number right here I guess we write the 1. Since there's a plus sign there, I think you have to write the 1. So you'd have 1 plus radical 3 over 3. And then you would have the same thing, 1 minus radical 3 over 3. You can't omit that 1. I was struggling with that. You can omit the 1 here because this is a multiplication, so we don't have to write the 1 right there. But this one, if you don't put anything there, it's like you're adding 0, so don't omit the 1. But you can leave your answers. That's totally acceptable. Okay, I'm going to do one more problem to hopefully maybe show you a little bit better. And we will go from there. Let me just erase this area. I don't think I need this space, but trying to be quick. Alright, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get. And let's look at one that's not in correct form. Let's look at 20. Okay, so first of all, we need to apply this 4 and do the multiplication so that we can put this in correct terms. So 4 times 2x would be 8x, and then 4 times -5 would be -20 equals x squared. And now we're going to kind of move this around a little. I'm going to move everything over here so that x squared stays positive, and then I'm just going to flip it. So -8x, so that leaves x squared minus 8x over here equals a -20. And I'm going to add 20, and I get x squared minus 8x plus 20 over here equals 0. Okay, and I'm just going to flip those because we're used to this being on the left side, and apparently I am going to use this space. So I'm just going to flip this around and keep everybody's sign the same, but just so that it looks normal. So here's the problem that I'm really working with. I had to switch this. Okay, so my A is going to be 1 because that's what's in front of x squared. My B is going to be -8, and my C is going to be 20. Alright, and now I'm going to put them in the formula, and I'll do that right here, and then I'll start working up here. So I have negative B, alright, plus or minus B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. Okay, I got it plugged in. Now I'm going to go a negative times a negative makes a positive, so that would be x equals 8 plus or minus. -8 squared is 64. I have 1 minus and then all pluses, so this will be a minus. 4 times 1 is 4, and then 4 times 20 is 80. And then 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? So then I gotta go 64 minus 80, which I think is just negative 16. Yeah. So I will have x equals 8 plus or minus the square root of negative 16 over 2. Okay? Now, there's a negative under a radical, and if we're dealing with square roots, that's a no-no. That's an imaginary number, so you're going to have to pull that I out. Okay? So this is really going to look like, well, I'll do it step by step. I was going to combine 2. Okay? But the square root of 16 is 4, so it really should look like 8 plus or minus 4i over 2. And then 2 goes into 8 4 times, and 2 goes into 4 2 times. So we are left with just this. Now that's what x equals. I could go 4 plus 2i, but I can't add those, so I'm just going to leave the plus or minus instead of writing 4 minus 2i, 4 plus 2i. Okay? So some of them, you're not going to get a numerical answer. You're going to get a radical like we did in that one. You could get a number like we did in the first one, or you could get some like mixed thingy-mabobs. So anyways, that is quadratic formula. Do your best on that because it is on the final, and the next video up should be final notes basically. Have a good rest of your day and God bless.